The crystalline spires of the Taurian palace glinted with orange and blue reflections under the twin suns of Tauros Prime as Nathaniel Reed made his way through the grand corridor. His diplomatic uniform, with Earth Republic insignia prominently displayed on the shoulder, felt uncomfortably stiff in the planet's higher gravity. Still, he maintained perfect posture as royal guards, their skin a characteristic azure blue with delicate bioluminescent patterns, flanked him on both sides. "The Empress does not appreciate being kept waiting, human," one guard muttered, his tone barely concealing disdain. Nathaniel offered a diplomatic smile. "Then we share something in common. I've been waiting 3 days for this audience." 6 months into his assignment as Earth's ambassador to the Taurian Empire, and Nathaniel was still navigating the complex web of their social hierarchies and courtly etiquette. His background, agricultural colony upbringing followed by 15 years in diplomatic services, hadn't fully prepared him for the intricacies of Taurian culture. The throne room doors parted, revealing a vast chamber supported by columns that seemed to be made of flowing water trapped in glass. At the far end, Empress Selena sat upon a floating throne that hovered several feet above the floor. Her blue skin was darker than that of other Taurians, almost indigo, with luminous patterns that pulsed with each breath. The famous crown of Tauros, a circlet of rare stellar metals that seemed to contain actual stars, adorned her head. "Ambassador Reed," she said, her voice carrying the distinctive harmonic quality of Taurian speech. "You've been quite insistent on this audience." Nathaniel bowed precisely to the depth protocol demanded, not so deep as to appear submissive, not so shallow as to cause offense. "Your Imperial Majesty, I come seeking clarification on the mining rights agreement. The documents delivered to my embassy contain provisions not discussed in our negotiations." The Empress's luminous patterns flickered briefly, a sign of irritation, Nathaniel had learned. "Negotiations evolve, Ambassador. The Empire's needs have changed. With respect, Your Majesty, the clause requiring Earth personnel to extract minerals from the radiation zones of Tauros Minor wasn't part of any evolution I witnessed. Such zones are hazardous even to Taurians with their natural radiation resistance. For humans, it would be fatal within hours." A murmur rippled through the court. The Empress leaned forward, her eyes, completely black except for pinpoints of white light, narrowing. "The minerals in those zones are essential to our fleet's upgrades. Your people claim to value this alliance." "We do," Nathaniel affirmed. "But we can't sign an agreement that would result in certain death for our workers. I propose we modify the terms to allow for robotic extraction, with Earth providing the technology and Tauros retaining 60% of the yield." The Empress's patterns flashed brightly. "You presume to counteroffer in open court?" "I presume to save lives while preserving our mutual interests," Nathaniel replied evenly. Empress Selena rose suddenly, causing her attendants to step back. "Perhaps you misunderstand your position, Ambassador Reed. Earth is a minor power seeking the protection of the Taurian Empire against the Krell Dominion. Your people need this alliance far more than we do." Nathaniel held her gaze. "All the more reason to ensure the agreement is sustainable and doesn't begin with the sacrifice of Earth citizens." "You speak boldly for someone representing a world that occupies less than 1/100th of the territory the Empire controls," the Empress said coldly. "Size isn't everything, Your Majesty," Nathaniel replied, earning several gasps from the court. "Earth may be small, but we value life, all life, including Taurian. That's why we seek partnership rather than domination." The throne room fell silent. Even the flowing water in the columns seemed to still. "Tavia," the Empress called suddenly. From behind the throne emerged a female Taurian whose appearance immediately set her apart. Her skin was lighter blue, almost aquamarine, and her luminous patterns were concentrated around her eyes and down her arms in intricate, swirling designs that marked her as a member of the warrior caste. She moved with predatory grace, the scaled armor she wore seeming more like an extension of her body than a separate garment. "Yes, Empress." Her voice lacked the musical quality of most Taurians, instead carrying a low, dangerous edge. "It seems Ambassador Reed requires a lesson in respect and Taurian customs." The Empress's patterns pulsed with barely contained anger. Challenge him. Nathaniel's stomach tightened. He knew of Taurian challenge customs, ritual combat that could end in serious injury or death. Tavia stepped forward, her eyes, unlike the Empress's, were a piercing silver that contrasted dramatically with her blue skin. Human, she addressed Nathaniel directly, I challenge you to Crosseth, the test of worthiness. Do you accept? Protocol dictated only one acceptable answer if he wished to avoid interplanetary incident. Still, Nathaniel needed clarification. The terms of the Crosseth? The warrior's mouth curved in what might have been a smile on a human. Combat with traditional energy blades. The victor decides the fate of the defeated. And if I refuse? The Empress answered for her warrior. Then Earth's petition for alliance is summarily rejected, and your vessels will no longer receive safe passage through Taurian space. Nathaniel maintained his diplomatic expression while calculating rapidly. Refusal would effectively strand 12 Earth colonies and expose them to Krell raids. Thousands would die. I accept the challenge, he said, his voice steady despite the knowledge that he might have just signed his own death warrant. Tavia inclined her head. Tomorrow at first light in the Imperial Arena. You may bring one weapon of your choosing, but it cannot be energy-based or projectile in nature. Understood. The Empress's satisfaction was evident in her brightening patterns. Court is dismissed. Ambassador Reed, you will be escorted to your quarters to prepare. I suggest you make peace with whatever deities you worship. As the court dispersed, Nathaniel caught Tavia studying him with curious intensity. Is there something else, Warrior Tavia? He asked. I'm assessing how quickly you'll die, she replied matter-of-factly. Most aliens challenged to Crosseth don't survive the first exchange. There's a first time for everything, Nathaniel said with more confidence than he felt. Your species' optimism is puzzling, she observed. It seems to persist even in the face of certain defeat. We call it hope. It's gotten us through worse situations than this. Tavia's silver eyes narrowed. Hope won't deflect an energy blade, Ambassador. Perhaps not, Nathaniel conceded. But it might guide the hand that wields the counter. Something flashed across her face, surprise, perhaps, or respect, before her features settled back into impassivity. Until tomorrow, human. She turned and walked away, her movements fluid and deadly. Back in his quarters, Nathaniel immediately contacted Earth Central Command, explaining the situation in terse sentences. Director Jansen's hologram looked grave. Can you win this fight? Unknown, Nathaniel admitted. I have combat training from the diplomatic protection courses, but these Taurian warriors train from childhood. The energy agreement is critical, Reed. Earth's power grid can't sustain our colonies much longer without those minerals. I'm aware of the stakes, Director. I'll do my best not to die while securing our interests. See that you don't, Jansen replied dryly. And Reed? There's something odd about how quickly this escalated. The Empress could have simply rejected our counteroffer. Nathaniel nodded slowly. I've had the same thought. This feels engineered. Watch your back. Jansen out. As the hologram faded, Nathaniel removed a slender case from beneath his bed. Inside lay a sword, not an ornamental diplomatic weapon, but a practical combat blade of carbon titanium alloy, a gift from his grandfather who had served in Earth's elite guard. Hope guides the hand, he murmured, testing the blade's balance and wondering if tomorrow would be the last time he'd see Taurus Prime's twin suns rise. The first rays of Taurus Prime's twin suns crept over the horizon, casting dual shadows across the Imperial arena. Nathaniel stood at the entrance tunnel, breathing deeply to center himself. He wore lightweight combat armor, a concession granted by Taurian protocols, while his grandfather's sword hung at his side, its carbon titanium alloy blade glinting in the early morning light. The arena awaits, Ambassador, announced a royal guard with undisguised anticipation. As does your defeat. Nathaniel simply nodded. He'd spent most of the night reviewing what little information Earth's databases contained about Taurian combat styles. The recordings had been fragmented, classified, and ultimately insufficient, but they'd given him a basic understanding. Taurians favored swift, aggressive attacks relying on their naturally superior reflexes. He stepped out into the arena to the rumble of thousands of Taurian spectators. The circular fighting ground stretched 50 meters across, its surface covered in a blue-tinted crystalline sand that crunched beneath his boots. Around the perimeter, force fields hummed, designed to protect the audience while keeping combatants contained. On the opposite side, Tavia emerged from her tunnel. She'd exchanged her scaled armor for a lighter fighting suit that emphasized her athletic form while still providing protection to vital areas. In her hand, she carried what appeared to be an inactive energy blade, currently just a metallic hilt with intricate engravings. Above them in a floating observation platform, Empress Selena took her seat, surrounded by courtiers and nobles. Her voice, amplified by unseen technology, echoed across the arena. Today we witness Crosseth, the test of worthiness. The human ambassador has accepted the challenge of our champion, Tavia of House Veridon. Let their combat determine the will of the cosmos. The crowd roared their approval as Nathaniel and Tavia approached the center of the arena. Up close, Nathaniel could see tiny scars marring the perfect blue of Tavia's skin, badges of honor from previous battles. I assume you know nothing of proper dueling forms, Tavia said quietly, her silver eyes appraising his stance. I know enough to stay alive, Nathaniel replied. Her lips twitched in what might have been amusement. We shall see. She activated her weapon, and a blade of pulsing blue energy materialized from the hilt with a distinctive hum. Traditional Crosseth rules: combat continues until surrender, incapacitation, or death. Nathaniel drew his grandfather's sword, which seemed primitive beside her energy blade. I prefer the surrender option, personally. Then you will be disappointed. Tavia raised her free hand in formal salute to the Empress above them. A gong sounded, reverberating through the arena. Tavia moved with startling speed, launching herself at Nathaniel with her blade aimed at his midsection. He barely parried in time, the energy blade sliding along his sword with a shower of sparks. The contact sent vibrations through his arm, but the special alloy held against the energy field, something ordinary metal couldn't have managed. They separated, circling each other warily. Nathaniel noted that Tavia seemed surprised that his weapon had withstood her blade. Interesting metallurgy, she commented, before executing a series of lightning-fast strikes that forced Nathaniel into a defensive retreat. He parried and dodged, giving ground strategically while studying her movements. Each attack followed a pattern, complex and deadly, but discernible to his trained eye. 3 exchanges later, he began to anticipate her rhythm. The crowd's roar dimmed in his consciousness as he focused entirely on survival. Tavia was formidable, but he noticed something peculiar in her fighting style, a slight hesitation before diagonal attacks, as if she were deliberately telegraphing certain moves. When she next lunged, he was ready. Instead of parrying directly, he sidestepped and countered with a swift strike that caught her off guard. The tip of his blade sliced across her upper arm, drawing a thin line of luminescent blue blood. The arena fell silent. No one had expected the human to land a hit. Tavia's silver eyes widened momentarily before narrowing with newfound respect and determination. First blood to you, Ambassador. It will be the last. She redoubled her assault, her energy blade a blur of motion as she drove Nathaniel back toward the arena wall. Her technique shifted, becoming less predictable, more primal. He blocked frantically, his arms burning with effort, but she was gradually overwhelming him. A sweeping blow knocked him off balance. As he stumbled, Tavia's blade slashed across his thigh, searing through his armor and into flesh. Pain exploded through his leg, and he barely rolled away from a follow-up strike that would have ended the match, and his life. Rising unsteadily, Nathaniel felt warm blood trickling down his leg. The wound wasn't deep enough to cripple him, but it slowed his movements dangerously. Tavia paused, allowing him to regain his footing, an unexpected courtesy. You fight better than anticipated, she acknowledged. But you cannot win. Surrender, and I will grant you an honorable defeat. Nathaniel adjusted his grip on his sword, settling into a defensive stance. The duel isn't over yet. Something shifted in Tavia's expression, a flash of what might have been admiration. As you wish. She attacked again, but this time Nathaniel noticed something different. Her strikes, while powerful, seemed calculated to push him toward the center of the arena rather than finish him quickly. He caught her gaze briefly during an exchange and saw conflict in those silver eyes. Understanding dawned. She was prolonging the fight, making it look convincing while avoiding fatal blows. But why? The realization provided an opening. During her next attack sequence, Nathaniel deliberately stumbled, appearing more wounded than he was. When Tavia committed to what should have been a disabling strike, he pivoted suddenly, using her momentum against her. His sword swept in a tight arc, knocking her energy blade from her grasp. Before she could recover, the tip of his blade rested against her throat. The arena went completely silent. Even the Empress had risen from her seat, her bioluminescent patterns flashing with shock. Tavia stood perfectly still, her silver eyes locked with Nathaniel's. How did you? You hesitated, he said quietly, so only she could hear. 3 times when you could have ended it. A muscle twitched in her jaw. Finish it, then. Instead, Nathaniel lowered his sword. I claim victory by disarmament, he announced loudly enough for the officials to hear. The challenge is satisfied. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Empress Selena's patterns were now flashing rapidly, a sign of intense emotion among Taurians. She descended from her platform in a controlled hover until she stood at the arena's edge. This is unprecedented, she declared, her voice cold with fury. A human defeating a Taurian champion in Crosseth. The combat was fair, Your Majesty, Nathaniel replied, sheathing his sword. According to your customs, I am now entitled to determine the fate of the defeated. The Empress's eyes narrowed to pinpoints of light. And what fate do you choose for Tavia of House Veridon? Nathaniel glanced at the warrior, seeing tension in every line of her body. I choose honor restored. She fought with skill and courage worthy of her position. More murmurs, now tinged with approval from some sections of the crowd. Tavia's expression remained impassive, but her patterns briefly pulsed with what might have been relief. How merciful, the Empress said, the word dripping with disdain. But perhaps too merciful. Tavia has failed in her duty to the Empire and to me personally. A cruel smile curved her lips. Therefore, I shall determine an additional punishment. Tavia immediately dropped to one knee, head bowed. I accept whatever punishment you deem appropriate, Empress. Indeed you shall. The Empress's patterns pulsed with malicious satisfaction. For your failure, you are henceforth bonded in marriage to this human. You will leave Tauros tonight and accompany him wherever he goes, surrendering all titles and positions within the Empire. Gasps erupted throughout the arena. Nathaniel stared in disbelief, while Tavia's head snapped up, her silver eyes wide with shock. Empress, Tavia began. Silence. Selena hissed. The punishment is decreed. The bonding ceremony will take place immediately. Nathaniel stepped forward. Your Majesty, with respect, such a punishment affects both parties. As victor, I should have some say. You claimed her honor restored, Ambassador, the Empress cut him off. You did not claim her freedom. Under Taurian law, her fate remains subject to royal decree. Her patterns pulsed triumphantly. Unless you wish to reject your victory and resume combat to the death. Trapped by protocol and the potential diplomatic fallout, Nathaniel could only bow stiffly. As your Majesty wishes. Within an hour, they stood in the palace's ceremonial chamber. The bonding ritual was mercifully brief, an exchange of genetic identifiers sealed by ancient words and the mixing of their blood on a crystal prism that glowed when the ritual completed. Through it all, Tavia remained stone-faced, her silver eyes refusing to meet Nathaniel's. When the officiant pronounced them bonded under Taurian law, she finally looked at him, her expression unreadable but her patterns conveying turbulent emotions. "My shuttle awaits in the southern docking bay," Nathaniel said quietly as they left the chamber. "We should depart before the Empress changes her mind about letting you leave." Tavia nodded curtly. "I require 30 minutes to collect personal belongings." "Of course." As she turned to leave, Nathaniel caught her arm gently. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry about this. It wasn't what I intended when I spared you." She studied him for a long moment. "You were victorious. I expected death or enslavement. This is, unexpected, but not worse." "High praise indeed," Nathaniel replied wryly. The ghost of a smile touched her lips before vanishing. 30 minutes, Ambassador. Then my life here ends." As she walked away, her posture rigid with dignity despite her exile, Nathaniel couldn't help but admire her resilience. Whatever game the Empress was playing by forcing this union, he suspected there was more to it than simple humiliation. And judging by the calculating look that had been in Tavia's silver eyes, she suspected the same. The diplomatic shuttle hummed to life as Nathaniel completed the pre-launch sequence. Outside the viewport, the architectural wonders of the Taurian capital faded into the gathering dusk, spires glowing with internal bioluminescence that mimicked the patterns on Taurian skin. He tried not to think about how this might be the last time either of them would see this world. Tavia sat beside him in the co-pilot's chair, her few possessions stowed in a single container. She wore civilian clothing now, a form-fitting suit of deep indigo with silver accents that complemented her aquamarine skin. The traditional marriage band encircled her wrist, a thin metallic cuff embedded with the same crystal that had sealed their union. Nathaniel wore a matching one, the strange material warm against his skin. "You fly this vessel yourself?" she asked, breaking the silence that had stretched between them since leaving the palace. "Earth diplomats receive basic piloting training," Nathaniel replied, engaging the thrusters. "We don't always have the luxury of support staff." Her silver eyes studied the control panel with professional interest. "Your technology is more advanced than the Empress led us to believe. One of many misconceptions she seems to harbor about Earth." The shuttle lifted smoothly from the landing pad, ascending into the stratosphere. Taurian traffic control granted them immediate clearance, unusually efficient for a departure that would normally involve multiple diplomatic checks. "They're eager to be rid of us," Tavia observed. "Or sending us on our way for a reason," Nathaniel countered, eyes narrowing at the instruments. "This feels too easy." Once they cleared the planet's atmosphere, Nathaniel set course for Earth, nearly 2 weeks' journey at the shuttle's maximum speed. As the autopilot engaged, he finally turned to fully face his new wife. "We need to talk about what happened down there." Tavia's luminous patterns flickered briefly, a sign of discomfort or uncertainty. "There is little to discuss. I failed in my duty. Exile is the consequence." "You didn't fail," Nathaniel said carefully. "You held back. I saw it clearly during our duel." She stiffened. "That's absurd. Why would I deliberately lose a Crosseth? That's what I'm trying to understand." He leaned forward. 3 times you could have ended the fight with fatal strikes. Each time, you redirected at the last moment." Tavia's gaze dropped to her hands, now clenched in her lap. "Perhaps your species' reflexes are better than our intelligence suggested. Or perhaps you had orders beyond what was publicly stated." Her head snapped up, silver eyes narrowing dangerously. "Careful, human. Such implications border on treason." Nathaniel held her gaze steadily. "We're beyond Taurian space now. Treason against a ruler who exiled you seems a moot concern." For several tense moments, they stared at each other. Finally, Tavia's shoulders slumped almost imperceptibly. "You understand nothing of Taurian loyalty," she said quietly. "Even in exile, I am bound by oaths." Before Nathaniel could press further, the shuttle's warning system blared to life. Red indicators flashed across the control panel. Proximity alert, he muttered, fingers flying over the controls. Ships approaching from Sector 7. Tavia leaned forward, her warrior's instincts immediately evident in her focused attention. 3 vessels. Krell configuration. Nathaniel frowned. We're nowhere near Krell territory. They're mercenaries, Tavia said grimly, recognizing the modified signatures. Krell outlaws who sell their services to the highest bidder. The comm system crackled to life with a harsh, guttural voice. Earth vessel, power down and prepare for boarding. Resistance will result in immediate destruction. Nathaniel exchanged a look with Tavia. Friends of yours? Hardly. She was already accessing the shuttle's defensive systems. The Empress considers Krell mercenaries beneath contempt. Using them would be, she stopped suddenly, realization dawning in her eyes. A perfect way to eliminate problems without official involvement, Nathaniel finished for her. Like a disgraced warrior and an inconvenient ambassador. Tavia's patterns pulsed with anger. We need to run. Already on it. Nathaniel diverted power from non-essential systems to the engines. The shuttle lurched forward, accelerating away from the approaching ships. The lead mercenary vessel immediately gave chase, firing warning shots that streaked past their hull. They're hurting us, Tavia observed tensely. Driving us toward that asteroid field. Nathaniel checked the navigation system and swore under his breath. There's a trading outpost on Verlith, can we make it there? Tavia calculated quickly. Possibly, if we can break pursuit. The settlement is neutral territory with security protocols even mercenaries hesitate to violate. Another blast, closer this time, rocked the shuttle. Warning lights indicated shield damage. One more direct hit and we lose atmospheric containment, Nathaniel reported grimly. Tavia's fingers danced over the weapons console. This diplomatic vessel has surprisingly robust armaments for a peacekeeping mission, she noted with raised eyebrows. Earth believes in speaking softly and carrying big guns, Nathaniel replied with a tight smile. Can you target their propulsion systems? Already calculating trajectory. Her warrior training was evident in her comm efficiency. Fire on my mark, mark. The shuttle's concealed weapons deployed, sending precision bursts toward the lead pursuer. The shots connected, causing the mercenary vessel to veer off course, trailing debris and venting atmosphere. Direct hit, Tavia confirmed with professional satisfaction. The other 2 are falling back to assist their companion. Which gives us our window. Nathaniel pushed the engines beyond recommended limits, setting course for Verlith. The shuttle protested, vibrations running through the hull as they accelerated to maximum speed. For several minutes, they maintained course in tense silence, both watching the sensors for signs of pursuit. We've bought time, not safety, Tavia finally said. Those mercenaries won't abandon their contract. Agreed, Nathaniel replied. The question is, who hired them? Tavia's expression darkened. We both know the answer to that. I need you to say it. She met his gaze, conflict evident in her silver eyes. The Empress, she arranged this. All of it. Including our marriage. Tavia turned away, staring out at the stars. The crosseth, the judgment, the exile, all carefully orchestrated. But I don't understand why. Nathaniel was about to respond when multiple alarms blared simultaneously. The shuttle lurched violently, throwing them both against their restraints. They've found us. Tavia exclaimed, checking the sensors. Different approach vector, they must have jumped ahead to intercept. Damage report. Nathaniel struggled to maintain their course as the shuttle shuddered around them. Engine containment failing, Tavia reported grimly. We can't outrun them now. Then we changed the game. Nathaniel adjusted their heading, diving toward the nearby planet. If we can't reach the outpost in space, we'll make a landing approach. A crash, you mean, Tavia corrected, already securing loose equipment. The shuttle won't survive atmospheric entry with this damage. We just need to get close enough to the settlement for an emergency landing. He glanced at her. Unless you prefer surrender to the mercenaries. Her lips curved in a fierce smile that transformed her face. I prefer to live, Ambassador. Nathaniel, he corrected. Under the circumstances, I think we're past titles. Nathaniel, she echoed, his name sounding exotic in her Taurian accent. If we survive this, I might actually believe your species' irrational optimism has merit. The shuttle plunged toward Verlith, heat building around the hull as they entered the atmosphere. Behind them, the mercenary vessels hesitated, unwilling to follow a potentially suicidal descent. Nathaniel fought to maintain control as systems failed around them. Tavia operated beside him with remarkable coordination, rerouting power and stabilizing critical functions without needing instruction. There, she pointed through the viewport at a sprawling collection of structures on the horizon. The trading outpost. Brace for impact, Nathaniel warned as the shuttle's remaining engine gave out. They were gliding now, losing altitude rapidly. The ground rose to meet them with frightening speed. Nathaniel managed to level their descent somewhat, aiming for a clearing near the outpost's perimeter. The shuttle hit hard, skidding across rough terrain before crashing into a rock formation with a sickening crunch of metal. For several long seconds, there was only silence broken by the hiss of damaged systems. Nathaniel coughed, tasting blood. His vision cleared slowly to find Tavia already unbuckling herself, a nasty gash on her forehead leaking luminescent blue. Are you injured? She asked, her professional tone belied by the concern in her eyes. Nothing serious, he managed, wincing as he released his harness. You're bleeding. She touched her forehead dismissively. Superficial. We need to move quickly. The mercenaries will land as close as they can. They gathered essential supplies, Nathaniel's sword, a compact energy weapon Tavia pulled from a hidden compartment in her luggage, emergency rations, and a medical kit. The shuttle's rear hatch was jammed, forcing them to exit through a maintenance access panel that barely accommodated Nathaniel's broader human frame. Outside, Verlitha's landscape stretched before them, a dusty plain dotted with strange crystalline formations that reflected the light of the setting sun. The trading outpost lay about 2 kilometers away, a chaotic collection of structures built from mismatched materials housing one of the most diverse populations in this sector of space. We should reach the settlement before nightfall, Tavia said, orienting herself quickly. Verlith temperatures drop dangerously after dark. They set off across the plain, moving as swiftly as their injuries allowed. Nathaniel noticed that Tavia unconsciously positioned herself slightly ahead and to his left, a protective stance that spoke volumes about her training and, perhaps, developing attitudes. So, he said after they'd walked in silence for several minutes, are you going to tell me the truth about our duel now? Tavia's step faltered briefly. What makes you think I lied? Because you're one of the Empire's elite warriors, yet you lost to a human diplomat in combat. Either I'm secretly the greatest swordsman in Earth's history, or something else was happening. She walked several more paces before responding. The Empress ordered me to make the fight appear legitimate but ultimately allow you to win. Why? I wasn't told. Her patterns pulsed with frustration. But there was something unusual about the arrangement. The Empress spoke to me privately before the duel, emphasizing that you must survive and that our marriage was the intended outcome. Nathaniel processed this information. So the entire spectacle, the challenge, the combat, the punishment, it was all designed to get you off planet with me? So it would seem, Tavia acknowledged. Though I wasn't informed of the mercenaries waiting to ensure neither of us reached our destination. They crested a small rise, bringing the outpost into clearer view. Even from this distance, the diversity of the settlement was apparent. Beings of all descriptions moved through crowded streets, some humanoid, others utterly foreign in appearance. Have you been to Verlith before? Nathaniel asked. Tavia shook her head. Such places are considered contaminating by Taurian standards. Our society values purity and separation of species. You might find this educational, then. A shadow passed overhead, a small scout ship heading toward their crashed shuttle. They're tracking us, Tavia observed grimly. We need to disappear into the settlement quickly. As they approached the outpost's perimeter, the cacophony of languages and smells grew overwhelming. Merchants hawked exotic goods from colorful stalls while patrons of countless species haggled, argued, and socialized. Tavia stiffened beside Nathaniel, clearly uncomfortable with the proximity of so many different life forms. Stay close, he murmured, gently taking her arm. Your discomfort makes you conspicuous. She didn't pull away from his touch, which he counted as progress. How do we proceed? First, we find secure communications to contact Earth, Nathaniel replied. Then lodging where we can lay low until extraction arrives. And if the mercenaries enter the settlement? We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. They wove through the crowded marketplace, drawing curious glances. A human and a Taurian made an unusual pair. Nathaniel noted that Tavia's hand had drifted closer to her concealed weapon, her warrior's instincts on high alert amidst the chaos. As night fell, they found a small inn run by a species Nathaniel didn't recognize, a six-limbed being with translucent skin who accepted their payment with minimal questions and directed them to an upper room. The accommodations were sparse, a single sleeping platform, a sanitizing cubicle, and a small window overlooking the bustling street below. Tavia examined the room with critical efficiency before taking position by the window, watching for pursuit. I'll attempt to establish communications with Earth, Nathaniel said, setting up a portable transmitter from their salvaged supplies. As he worked, he couldn't help noticing how the alien sunset cast amber light across Tavia's aquamarine skin, highlighting the elegant curve of her neck and the proud set of her shoulders. Despite everything, he found himself drawn to her, her strength, her discipline, and the hints of depth beneath her warrior's exterior. They're here, she said suddenly, interrupting his thoughts. 3 Krell mercenaries just entered the market square. Nathaniel joined her at the window, their shoulders brushing as they observed their pursuers questioning merchants below. So much for laying low until extraction, he murmured. Tavia turned to face him, determination in her silver eyes. Then perhaps it's time we discovered exactly why the Empress wants us dead, and why she arranged our marriage in the first place. In the fading light, with danger closing in around them, Nathaniel realized that whatever game the Empress was playing, he and Tavia were now irrevocably bound together in more ways than one. Tomorrow, he agreed, we start finding answers. The bond bracelet on his wrist pulsed warmly, as if in response to his resolve, or perhaps to his proximity to Tavia. Either way, he suspected their journey was only beginning.